Have you ever walked past a mirror and barely recognized the tired-looking stranger staring back at you, wondering when exactly that happened? Many men reach a certain age and assume their best years of looking sharp and feeling confident have passed. But what if I told you that 4 specific haircuts could turn back the clock by nearly a decade without looking like you're desperately chasing your youth? The difference between looking distinguished and simply looking old often comes down to one surprisingly simple factor: the haircut framing your face. Not trendy styles copied from young celebrities, but timeless cuts specifically designed to work with mature features, silver hair, and the natural changes that come with living a full life. These aren't fashion experiments. They're proven styles that restore definition to your face, project quiet strength, and signal to everyone around you that you're still fully engaged in living well. Let me start with the most versatile option, the classic side part. This isn't your grandfather's rigidly slicked haircut from old photographs. The modern version brings clean structure and intentional balance to your appearance while remaining completely natural and effortless. What makes this cut powerful is how it restores the facial sharpness that gradually softens with age. When hair lacks direction, it visually blurs your features. A well-placed side part creates a vertical line that draws the eye, emphasizing your jawline and cheekbones in ways that make your entire face appear more defined. I once knew a man named Robert who looked perpetually exhausted despite sleeping well and staying active. His hair, though clean and neat, just sat on his head without purpose or structure. When his barber suggested a classic side part, Robert initially resisted, thinking it seemed too formal for his casual lifestyle. He finally agreed, and the change was remarkable. The part itself took seconds to create each morning, but it transformed how people responded to him. Colleagues asked if he'd lost weight. His wife mentioned he seemed more energetic. Nothing had changed except the intentional structure framing his face. The beauty of the side part lies in its universality. Whether your hair is thick or thinning, straight or wavy, dark or completely silver, this cut works. It even cleverly disguises a receding hairline by drawing attention to the fuller sections of your hair rather than the areas that have thinned. The key is keeping the styling subtle. Use a lightweight pomade or cream, just enough to hold the part in place while allowing natural movement. Hair that looks like you spent 45 minutes sculpting it reads as insecurity. Hair that looks naturally styled but intentional reads as confidence. The side part also projects something specific that matters as you age: quiet authority. It signals that you pay attention to details, that you respect yourself enough to look deliberately put together, and that you understand timeless style transcends temporary trends. Women notice this not because the haircut itself is particularly attractive, but because it reveals character. A man who maintains himself with dignity into his later years demonstrates self-respect that extends beyond appearance into how he approaches everything. The second haircut that genuinely transforms how older men look is what I call the modern silver pompadour. Now, before you imagine Elvis or a greasy rockabilly look, understand that this is a softer, more natural interpretation. This style adds volume and height on top while keeping the sides clean and tapered. The result lifts your face visually, counteracting the downward pull that aging creates in skin and features. What makes this cut particularly effective for mature men is that it celebrates rather than hides your silver hair. Gray and white hair has unique texture and dimension that actually looks better with some height and movement. When older men keep their hair completely flat, especially silver hair, it can create a washed-out appearance that adds years. Adding gentle volume on top creates shadows and light reflection that make the hair look vital and dynamic rather than flat and lifeless. The modern pompadour works through proportion. As we age, our faces naturally lengthen slightly and the skin relaxes downward. Adding height on top creates a visual lift that restores more youthful proportions without looking artificial. The key word is gentle. You're not creating a tall architectural structure on your head. You're simply encouraging your hair to have some upward movement and soft angles rather than lying limply against your skull. Thomas, a retired architect, embraced this style after years of keeping his hair short and flat out of convenience. He told me that the first time he styled it with a bit of height, his reflection startled him. The face looking back appeared lighter somehow, less heavy and tired. The vertical lift actually opened up his eye area and made his entire expression seem more alert and engaged. He used a light mousse and took maybe 90 seconds each morning to create the shape, but that small effort paid dividends in how he felt walking through his day. This haircut also sends a specific message about aging. It says you're not trying to look 25 again, but you're also not surrendering to looking elderly before your time. There's a middle ground where maturity and vitality coexist, and the silver pompadour occupies that space beautifully. It's sophisticated without being stuffy, current without chasing youth, and flattering in a way that feels earned rather than desperate. The third style that reliably makes mature men look younger is the tapered fade. This cut keeps the sides progressively shorter as they move down toward the ears and neck while maintaining more length on top. The gradual transition creates a modern, clean silhouette that works remarkably well on older faces. What happens as we age is that our faces naturally soften and lose some of the sharp definition of youth. The jaw may appear less pronounced, the neck less distinct. A tapered fade visually restores those boundaries. By reducing the bulk on the sides and creating a clear contrast between the sides and top, this haircut essentially sculpts your face with negative space. It makes your features appear more chiseled without any actual change to bone structure or skin. The effect is subtle but powerful, creating an impression of sharpness and definition that counteracts the gentle blurring time brings to all our faces. The tapered fade also has a lightening effect on your overall appearance. Heavy hair on the sides can weigh down your look, making you appear older and more tired. Clean, tapered sides feel fresh and current without veering into trendy territory that might look like you're trying too hard. The key is keeping the taper soft rather than extreme. You don't need a skin fade that screams for attention. A gentle taper that creates clean lines while maintaining natural transitions serves you better. James, a man in his late 60s, switched to a tapered fade after decades of the same short all-over cut. He described it as suddenly seeing the version of himself he still felt like inside. The sharper lines around his face made him appear more present and engaged. Combined with a neatly trimmed beard which added texture and depth around his jaw, the overall effect took years off his appearance. He mentioned that people seemed to make more eye contact with him, as if the cleaner lines made him more visually accessible somehow. This haircut works particularly well if you've maintained some physical fitness. The sharp lines complement the structure of an active lifestyle, but even if you haven't, the visual definition it creates still benefits you. It signals that you're current, that you pay attention to how you present yourself, and that you understand the power of clean, intentional grooming. The fourth haircut that genuinely makes older men look younger is what I call the medium-length sweep back. This style keeps hair slightly longer on top, perhaps 2 to 3 inches with tapered sides, and the length is swept back naturally rather than combed flat or parted sharply. This cut works beautifully for men with natural wave or some volume, though it can be adapted for finer or straighter hair with the right products. What makes this style effective is how it celebrates texture and movement rather than fighting against them. As hair grays and changes texture, it often develops interesting patterns and natural flow. Instead of cutting everything short to minimize these changes, the sweep back embraces them, turning texture into an asset. The movement in your hair creates the impression of vitality. Static, unmoving hair reads as lifeless, while hair with natural flow suggests energy and health. The sweep back also creates a sense of direction that flatters mature faces. By encouraging hair to move backward and slightly upward, you're again creating that visual lift that counteracts aging's downward pull. The style frames your face without covering it, keeping attention on your features while adding interest through the hair's natural texture and dimension. Walter, who maintained this style from his mid-50s into his 70s, said it made him feel like himself in a way shorter cuts never had. The length and movement reflected his personality, which remained curious and engaged with life. He used a lightweight cream, worked it through with his fingers rather than a comb, and let the hair fall naturally back. The entire process took less time than carefully crafting a side part, yet the result conveyed effortless confidence. This haircut sends a particular message about your relationship with aging. It suggests you're not rigidly controlling every aspect of your appearance out of fear, but instead working with what you have in a relaxed, confident way. The natural texture and movement project comfort in your own skin, which is inherently attractive at any age but especially as we mature. Now here's what unites all 4 of these haircuts. They work with your current reality rather than fighting against it. They don't require you to dye your gray hair or undergo expensive treatments to restore thickness or deny that time has passed. Instead, they optimize what you have right now, using structure, proportion, texture, and intentional styling to restore definition and vitality to your appearance. These cuts also share another quality. They all require some minimal maintenance and intention. You cannot wake up, do nothing to your hair, and expect these styles to work. But the effort required is measured in seconds or a couple of minutes each morning, not an elaborate grooming routine. Using a small amount of the right product, taking a moment to create the intended shape, keeping regular appointments with a skilled barber who understands these cuts. That's the investment, and the return far exceeds the cost. The psychological impact of these haircuts extends beyond how others see you into how you see yourself. When you look in the mirror and recognize a version of yourself that appears vital, sharp, and engaged, it changes how you carry yourself throughout the day. Your posture improves unconsciously. You make more direct eye contact. You enter rooms with slightly more presence. These small shifts in body language and confidence compound into how people respond to you, creating a positive cycle that started with a simple haircut. I encourage you to bring photos to your barber or stylist, showing clearly what you're asking for. Don't assume they'll understand from a brief description. A classic side part means different things to different people. Show them exactly the proportions and style you want, then ask their honest opinion about whether it will work with your face shape and hair type. A good barber will tell you if something won't suit you and suggest modifications that will. Start with the style that feels most accessible to you. If you've always parted your hair, refining that into a clean, structured side part might feel like a natural first step. If you have decent volume and want to make a bolder change, consider the modern pompadour. If you prefer shorter, lower-maintenance cuts, explore the tapered fade. If you have some length and texture to work with, try the sweep back. There's no single right answer, only what works for your features, lifestyle, and comfort level. Remember that the goal isn't to look like someone else or to somehow trick people into thinking you're younger than you are. The goal is to look like the best, most vital version of yourself at exactly the age you are right now. These haircuts accomplish that by working with proportion, structure, and the specific ways mature faces differ from younger ones. They're not magic, but they are powerful tools that, when used correctly, can genuinely take years off your appearance while adding to your confidence and presence. If you found this information valuable, I encourage you to share it with other men who might benefit from these insights. Subscribe to this channel for more practical guidance on looking and feeling your best through every stage of life. Leave a comment telling us which of these 4 haircuts you're considering, or what changes you made to your grooming routine that made a real difference. Your experiences might inspire someone else to take that small step that leads to feeling more like themselves again. Looking distinguished, confident, and vital isn't about fighting age. It's about understanding how to work with where you are right now to project the best version of yourself to the world.